Recording in progress.
Well, hello everyone. It's Ken Scott back with another episode of the Denied Entry to USA show. And yada, yada, all that good stuff. So anyway, guys, I think it's been about a week since I've done a video or so. Today's video is something that's literally out of the clear blue sky. A fan posed a question that when I read this, this is a very, very political question. So I took, I don't know, half hour or so to think about this, think about how I wish to respond to this, because like I said, it's very political for many reasons. So here's the question. Can you make a video of crossing to USA? I got a Canadian pardon. I know it's not recognized in the US, but when I fly in and they ask me, I will say I have no record or conviction, plus my fingerprint destruction, so no FPS number is like, I never got arrested, right? This is a very, very political question for many reasons. I have mixed emotions about this question. I'm going to get to the answer of it, but part of it is because when I worked for the system, I saw how the system operated. I saw some of the people working as employees. And I'm going to answer this question in a few minutes. Let me give you guys a bit of some groundwork, so to speak. Now, every Canadian who enters the USA has to be deemed admissible by CBP, hands down. Now, obviously, if you're deemed inadmissible and they discover it, well, they deem you they won't let you in. So this is such a political question because I know the correct answer, but I have to make sure I answer this question the appropriate way. Under the Immigration Code, the 212(6)(c) for misrepresentation, a person that makes a false statement in order to gain entry to the USA, this the simple version, is inadmissible. Now, you guys are probably wondering, well, Ken, what is false statement? This is where it gets political. And I'll tell you why. First of all, these officers at the port of entry, these officers have to show that they've made so many so many apprehensions and turned so many people around as part of their duties. And these guys get an annual performance appraisal. So it's basically if the management feels these guards or officers have not lived up to their duties, they could get disciplined. Now, they do have a strong union, mind you, but you don't move up at CBP unless you get a very good performance appraisal. And again, one of the ways is the detentions, the arrests, and people they turn around, yada, yada. Now, having said that, there are some officers at CBP, I'll come out and say it, who are a little unscrupulous, so to speak. A few years ago, I saw online, they're saying CBP is the largest law enforcement agency in the USA, but also the largest agency with the most corruption. Now, to that, I will say that I knew of officers at CBP, and they may have said some things or engaged in some behavior that raised some eyebrows, and some got disciplined for it, some they never got caught for it. There was an officer who, how can I say it? Well, a guy, he liked to, go to nightclub, date women, so to speak, which is fine, whatever. I used to hang out with him. And apparently there's one woman that rejected him. And I think he told her his profession. I'm not sure about that part. But long story short, this same officer was working at the port of entry. Guess who came through his line? And it's just coincidence. It was not planned. So for what he told me, she was surprised to see him, yada, yada, all that good stuff. So I said, what happened? He made her go to secondary. He grilled her and told her that he did not believe that she was a bona fide visitor to enter the USA. He entered her name into the system and he turned her around. So I asked him privately, and I won't say his name, I asked him privately about that. And his thing was because he didn't use the words that he felt rejected when she rejected him at the club, but because she didn't take him up on his offer of showing her interest, it did not please him. So that factored into her being turned around. Did I like hearing that? No, I didn't. I didn't think that was right, but it is what it is, yada, yada, yada. And some other stuff too. So this all ties in, by the way, to this question of this individual. So you got to factor in some of these officers you got working at these borders. Some of them are, like I said, they're very unscrupulous. Some of them should not even be working there. You got some good ones there too. You got some good ones and not so good ones. So then fast forward, you got a guy by the name of John Smith, who maybe he made a mistake when he was younger. Fine. He stole a car at 19, now he's 40. John is married, so John can, John wants to take his kids to Disneyland. Yes, John stole a car. He's guilty of it. That's right. That's appropriate. So John got a pardon, and his stuff is wiped from the U.S. database, the U.S. system, which is fine. His arrest is wiped. So I guess it boils down to ethics, so to speak. Although I have the ethics of Saul Goodman, Breaking Bad, but it boils down to ethics. Would it be ethically correct for John to say that he has no criminal record because the border cannot see the conviction, they cannot see the charge? That's a question John has to ask himself ethically. Now, if John decides to, quote unquote, be honest and say, well, yeah, I got convicted of car theft, John will have to get a waiver for the rest of his life every couple of years. It's going to cost him thousands of dollars. And even though this might just be a one-off for John, but is it right for John to have to pay for what he did for the rest of his life like that? Where's the forgiveness, coming into the situation? So that's why I said this question is a bit of a double-edged sword. So in that case, when John goes to the border, if they ask him this question about were you ever arrested or convicted, whatever, John has to decide how he wishes to answer. Now, if there's no way that they can see this information in the system, John has to decide how he wishes to respond. The thing is, I cannot tell John to make a false statement. I cannot do that. Me or no other provider can do that because, let's just say we cannot do that. If John gets caught making a false statement, John could get some time in federal prison because we have a client that did that. He got 2 years in. So, but if John's the kind of individual who, if he's taken to the interrogation room and he can hold himself, hold out, and if he has balls of titanium, I won't say steel, balls of titanium, which is the strongest metal on earth. John theoretically would never need a waiver because there's no proof and because he did not voluntarily admit to committing the acts of the crime, conviction, yada, yada, all that good stuff. So John theoretically would save money. Now, if John has balls of jello and he goes into that back room and he starts singing like a canary, it's going to cost him thousands of dollars. So the fan that wrote in, I cannot tell him to make a statement that's not correct. What I can tell him is how the system is set up, and then he can decide which way he wants to go. So essentially, if there's no record of this in any database, no record whatsoever, how can they use something against you that there's no record of unless you voluntarily admit to it? So again, it depends upon John if he has balls of titanium or balls of jello. Now, most of the time, the people who have years of experience, how can I say it, of dealing with law enforcement on the other end, they don't usually have a problem with this because they have balls of titanium quite often, so they don't get caught up in this drama. The ones who normally get caught up are the ones who, in a sense, have balls of jello, or the ones who fall into that quote unquote ethnic guilt. Oh, sorry, not ethnic, ethical guilt. So so to answer this question is, you got to decide how you wish to answer. You know, it just really depends. Now, one thing I will tell you guys is what the border does, and what a lot of these lawyers do, they play word games. Like, for example, if I say to you, do not make a false statement, that sounds a hell of a lot more inflammatory than if I say, hey, did you say something that wasn't correct? They're both the same thing, but one sounds worse than the other. So the lawyers will say, oh, don't false statements, yada, yada. The border say false statements, yada, yada, all this babbling BS, yada, yada. That sounds a lot worse than saying, well, did you make a statement that's not correct or that's incorrect? You guys got to understand the word game. And these guards, well, a lot of the Gen Xer type guards, they play this game well. I'm a Gen Xer, so I know how these guys think. Now, these millennial guards and Gen Z guards are a lot different. A lot of them, how can I say this? A lot of them can barely count from 1 to 5, especially the Gen Z ones. So they don't have the critical thinking skills, and they don't know how to do the proper interrogations, which is great for John. You get a Gen X guy, and he knows his stuff. It might be a bit tricky for John. So what I'm going to say just for John is, you got to decide how you want to approach it. Now, what also happens is, when you get a pardon, yes, you're removed from the database. And if it's not downloaded into text, the CBP system, yes, they won't see that conviction per se. And if you got your FPS number removed, they won't see the arrest. But what happens is, the Canadian Pardon Bureau or Board, they will send a notification to the border that, hey, Saddam Hussein had a criminal record, but Saddam Hussein has a pardon. So when the border sees that, they don't know if Saddam had a record for stealing a car or a record for doing drive-bys. So what they'll do, they'll haul him inside and they'll try to get him to sing like a canary. So this is what I mean when I say it just depends upon you, how you handle interrogation. The guys who have experience dealing with law enforcement, they don't usually have a problem with this. They know how to make I'm going to say a proper presentation. A proper presentation. The ones who don't have as much experience may make what's called an improper presentation and end up needing a waiver. So because they've admitted to the elements of an offense that makes them inadmissible. So I'm not telling you guys to make a statement that's untrue. I'm not telling you guys to make a statement that's false. I'm giving you the parameters. I'm telling you how it's set up. You got to decide within yourself how you wish to approach it. That way, I cannot be accused of telling someone to make a statement that is untrue or false, because I'm giving you the information and you decide which way you wish to go, if that makes any sense. But to answer his question, theoretically, if there's nothing in the system and it's never downloaded into text, yeah, they won't see it. So now they grill him. He's going to have to decide how he wishes to proceed at that point. I mean, guys, it really just depends, because this, like I said, this is very, very political. It's political for me because I worked for the system. I worked in law enforcement. So I know how some of these officers can be. And some of these guys only care about their career. Some of these guys are so gung-ho. So I'm kind of biased after what I saw. I mean, I'm trying to think of some examples. One time we had to go make a felony arrest of an individual, and we got there. So it was me. It's three. Okay, it was the three of us. So we went to the house. We pulled the individual out. He came out. That's fine. When the individual's brother came out afterwards, started yelling at my trainer. My trainer turns around. Just imagine this is the long flashlight. This is a flashlight. My trainer, so The individual's brother came out of the home and started yelling at my trainer. And I believe he may have placed his hand on my trainer's shoulder, but he got close to him, wanting to know what the fuck was going on. My trainer quickly spun around, pulled out his light, took the guy, placed him across the hood of the car, and I don't mean gently, and about 5 whacks right here with that flashlight. That's how fast it was. So I'm watching this. I'm like, oh, okay. And then the same instant, the guy that we picked up, he started running. So we got him. And afterwards, my trainer says to us, this boy, I bet that asshole is going to have a headache for days. So I had mixed emotions about that, because the fact that I wasn't raised that way. And yeah, maybe the guy should not have came out to the trainer like that. I agree. But how are you going to joke about something like that? So that's why this question is so biased, because I know how some of these guys can be. I mean, should he have smashed that guy 5 times in the back of the head with that light? Oh, hell no, of course not. But I could not say anything. If I said something, then I would have problems. So, but long story short, so the guy, I don't remember if the guy, I think he just got a suspended sentence. He was fine. And the guy that got hit with the flashlight, we never saw anymore. I guess he moved away. He said, "To hell with it." But my trainer was good in the sense of he knew his stuff, but he had a major anger problem. And I saw that in other things too. So, but the problem is, in this kind of work, in law enforcement work, these guys all stick together. They'll back each other. And if one rats on the other, so to speak, he is basically ostracized, and he may not move in his career. So on one hand, is John justified for saying that he's never been arrested or charged, knowing that he will never be found out? Depends on how you look at it. Yeah, he did this one thing. And yes, John no longer does this. He's a married guy with kids. He made a mistake. Fine. I don't feel he should be punished for the rest of his life for something simple as that. Now, same token is, what if John was a diddler, so to speak, and, he was molesting little boys and girls? You see what I mean? So this question this is a very, very political question. And what if John had 4 convictions for this, but he got his pardon, which I don't know if he could, but he got his pardon and everything is wiped out of the system. Then John gets in there, and then John starts diddling American kids. So, so in all honesty, there's really no easy answer to this question. So I have to kind of answer it in the sense of, I'm on the sidelines looking in. Technically, will they find out? Probably not. But if they do find out and you're caught making a false statement, you could be in deep shit. So it just really depends upon you, sir. I'm not going to tell you either way. And some of these discount waiver companies like Batman's Pardons and Waivers, they push this bullshit to people. Oh, just get this pardon, which you guys know what I say about a pardon, or worse, a pardon. Get this pardon, get this purge, and it's not in the system. Well, if he's telling you to do that in order to facilitate you entering the USA without being detected, he actually is guilty. And there's one discount waiver company employee who's done that. I have not reported him to ICE yet. I've had other things I had to contend with, work-wise. So part of it is we've got too much work now, so we try to allocate resources. But no waiver provider can come to your face and tell you to knowingly make a false statement in order to gain entry. So I will never tell you that, to knowingly make a false statement to gain entry. Now, I will tell you how the system works, and I will tell you the parameters, and whatever you decide to do after that, that's on you. So if you say to me, Ken, what do I do? I'm going to say, well, you know what, John? You got to decide what way works best for you. And John will say, okay. John will say, well, can they see this in the system? Probably not. So I'm probably pretty safe. If you look at it from your perspective, you could definitely call that safe. John said, okay, so should I do that? So I cannot tell you to do that. And John said, okay, I will make my own decisions. There we go. You make your own decision. Um, yeah, John will save a bunch of money and not having to get a waiver, and it's fine. But what if John has convictions for fondling little boys, like I said, or little girls, or just this question is so just makes such an ethical dilemma to it. But like I said, I've got the ethics of Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad. So on one sense, that's fine. But then these lawyers are unethical because they will tell you, oh no, never make a false statement, tell everything. You go there and you admit to stuff that's not in any database, any system, and they find out you now need a waiver. And guess what? The lawyer thinks that because you now need a waiver, you're going to come to him for the business. So is he even ethical for even making that statement, knowing he's basically just trying to get you to screw yourself so he can get business off you? That's not ethical to me. So guys, the answer to this question is yes. If you were not downloaded to text, if your FPS is destroyed, and you have a pardon, if it's totally sealed, and you're not in the gang task force database, they likely will not see it. So, but they will be notified that you have a pardon, so they're going to know something there. So then you guys, again, got to decide, if they decide to interrogate you, how you wish to proceed. Now, I'll do like a bit of a trick here. No, you know what? Yes. This is canned air. Now, if I do this, what came out of here? And you said, well, canned air came out. How do you know air came out? Did you see it? No, I heard it. How did you know what you heard was air? And you pause and think about it. So, well, I think it was air. Oh, so you think it was air. So you're going to elaborate or talk about things that you think that you don't know for a fact. No, so yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So why would you elaborate on things that you don't know for a fact existed? What's the proof that was air? Where's the proof that this was air? Who knows what it could be? Could be nitrous oxide. Who knows? So, why elaborate on something that if it's not proven, does not exist, and it's not there? So if that makes any sense. So again, you guys got to decide. But if you make a false statement and get caught, you will have some penalties. So anyway, guys, so I hope that I answered his question, this gentleman. I don't know what his conviction was. Maybe he stole a car, or maybe he has something more serious. Who knows? I just don't think that you should be punished for life for small offenses, because everyone makes a mistake and people deserve a chance. And the US is known for just being overly aggressive in terms of punishment. So that's why I also have mixed feelings about this, because yes, that guy did this. He's 20 years old. He's young, dumb, and full of you know what. And yeah, he didn't use his brain. Why should he be penalized until he's like 85? Why? Well, he shouldn't be for something simple. So if he does not elaborate on this, he's not penalized because it's something small. If that makes any sense. So hopefully I answered his question, gentlemen. This is probably the best way that I can really elaborate on it, because this way I'm totally neutral. I'm not taking any position. I'm providing the info, and you guys can decide which way you decide to go. Whether you decide to have a great memory, which is possible, or it's also possible you have a bad memory. Now, I told you about 2 individuals I know in Surrey. They were charged with trafficking 3 times, but they were never convicted. And the border tries to get them to elaborate on this. The border sees the charges, but because they have a bad memory due to various reasons, they cannot recall events. So the border guard gets angry, yada, yada, and all that good stuff. But if you don't recall something, you don't recall something. If there's no proof of it, how can you elaborate on something you don't know, don't recall? So Jas and Sukhwinder, according to them, they said they told me they don't recall. So, okay, well, fair enough. And I explained to them, so if you don't recall, how can you be burned for something you don't recall? Which makes perfect sense. So those two gentlemen will never need a waiver because they're not convicted and they cannot recall details due to the trauma that they experienced. I believe it's called dissociative amnesia. So they don't recall, bottom line. So anyway, that's all I will say on this topic. I'll leave it at that. And again, it's Ken Scott, Senior, U.S. Immigration Law Intelligence Analyst with www.usentry-waiver-services.com and with 888-908-3841 or 604-332-9213. Denied Entry to USA show. And in the words of my Vulcan colleague, live long and prosper. Why you should be denied entry to that country. So, if you're denied entry to the United States for criminality, maybe, at a bar fight, or maybe you were accused of, I don't know, it's okay. You didn't do it. This is what you want to do. You may need a U.S. entry waiver. You may, or you may not. If you do, you want to use sendittoken.com. Sendittoken.com. And once you use sendittoken.com, we can get you cleared to enter the United States. Does not matter what your conviction is, whether it's for or
nothing is impossible.
Why? Because we're there when you need us.
Sendittoken.com. I gotta tell you folks, wait till Hulk Hogan comes out here. The roof is gonna come off the Bell Center here in Montreal. As the anticipation builds, you can feel it. The legendary Hulk Hogan is a heartbeat away